Hello, today I will be talking to you about the 13th President of the United States, Millard Fillmore. Millard Fillmore isn't a very well-known figure, as I didn't really know him before I did my research. All I did know is that he was put into the presidency after Zachary Taylor had died. But now I know what he did for our country and I will share it with you. Although he wasn't known to many, or one of the most important presidents, as people would say, he was actually very important during the middle 19th century. Millard Fillmore was born on January 7th, 1800 in a log cabin in the small town of Summerhill, New York. His parents, Phoebe and Nathaniel Fillmore, had 9 children, including Millard. Millard Fillmore was the second child of 9 and the first boy. When he was 9 years old, he was finally able to do some schooling. He was very far behind in his schooling compared to other kids in his class. This made him work extra hard and become more determined to catch up to his classmates, which he did at an exponential rate. In later years, he began apprenticing 2 different times and paying for his freedom during both. He then began to study law in 1819. There was little sign of a legal career starting up, but when his family moved to East Aurora, New York, he worked tirelessly in being both a teacher and bank clerk, while also devoting his free time to studying law. When he was finally admitted to a practice law in New York State, he was 23 years old. When he attended this law school, he met a girl named Abigail, who was his teacher and married her after he became a lawyer. By this time, he set up a practice in Buffalo. He had become the leader of a political party known as the Anti-Masons. In 1832, Fillmore was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives as an anti-Mason. Fillmore later renounced his membership as a part of the Anti-Masons and openly joined a party that was known as the Whigs. They believed commerce and manufacturing led to a better life for all Americans. Again, in 1836, Fillmore ran for Congress as a Whig and won. As his first term as a New York Assemblyman, he was quiet for his first term in Congress, but began making a name for himself when he returned to Congress for a second term in 1837. After the election of 1838, a dispute arose in the House of Representatives, as 5 congressmen from New Jersey were elected. The outcome would determine whether the Whigs or Democrats would have the majority over the House. Millard Fillmore gave some of the most important and persuading speeches of his political career during this time. There was also a battle of tariffs and the tax on imported goods. Fillmore devoted himself to preserving the high tariffs that were in effect at the time, but also wanted to keep President John Tyler in political trouble, since he believed that Tyler betrayed the Whig Party. Fillmore accomplished both of these things with great political skill. As the presidential election of 1848 approached, the Whigs knew the support of their Southern allies was needed. When Zachary Taylor was chosen to represent the Whig Party, many anti-slavery delegates believed that the selection of Taylor was the end of the Whig Party. But a New York delegate proposed a vice presidential candidate by the name of Millard Fillmore, who could seal the hole between slavery and anti-slavery delegates. During his campaign, Fillmore stated that he would not encourage the federal government to take an active role in opposing slavery. He believed slavery was not something the national government should be a part of. Pause it. In 1849, Zachary Taylor and Millard Fillmore had been sworn into office as President and Vice President of the United States. Tensions had built up regarding the southern states becoming their own independent country in which slavery was tolerated. If Congress were to vote on a compromise bill, the vote would be close. Fillmore knew that in the end, if it ended in a tie, he would have to make the deciding vote. He had favored the compromise, but to vote in favor of it would be political suicide for Fillmore, but he believed in preserving the Union rather than his own political career. Good thing Millard Fillmore never had to make that decision. On July 9, 1850, former President Zachary Taylor died of a brief illness. This led to the presidency of Millard Fillmore and political shift in the administration. Not many Americans agreed with the compromise. People who were strongly against still did not accept the compromise. Both sides were affected, and there were sections of the bill's provision that neither sided or agreed with. The Northern did not agree with the fugitive slave law, and several states then passed laws prohibiting its enforcement. The South did not believe that the government would enforce the fugitive slave law. Fillmore struggled to keep these two extreme sides satisfied. He then gave in to the Southern pressure and secession threats. He decided to enforce the fugitive slave law. In 1851, a Maryland man combed Pennsylvania hunting down runaway slaves that he owned. One of the slaves killed his master when found by him. The incident led Fillmore to support treasons against over 40 persons, both black and white, supposedly connecting with the killing. A Supreme Court judge, however, ruled that opposition to the fugitive law did not qualify as a treasonous act. The debate on this compromise continued. Millard Fillmore agreed that he would sign any bill passed to him as long as they were constitutional. On August 9, 1850, the first of the compromise bills were passed, resolving many problems including border disputes between Texas and Mexico, then the bill that granted California statehood. Utah and New Mexico were both given territorial governments and allowed them to decide for themselves if they want to permit slavery or not. The passing of these bills postponed any real chance of a civil war for another decade. By approving the fugitive slave law, Fillmore earned the hatred of abolitionists everywhere, yet he only did what he thought was necessary to save the Union without military force. At this time, Japan had been a completely isolated nation. American shipping interests, however, identified the nation as a prime location to stop and resupply their ships on their way to China and Southeast Asia. Fillmore ordered a trade mission to Japan, and although the mission was not fully completed until the succeeding administration of Franklin Pierce, the policy did open Japan for trade with the rest of the world. The consequences of this mission, both positive and negative, were the work of Fillmore. After coming out of the office, Millard Fillmore chose to live his life in Buffalo peacefully until fate had told him otherwise. While Fillmore was mourning the death of his wife, Abigail, his daughter, Mary Abigail, had grown ill and died within hours. After that, he found himself back into the action as a part of the novice group named the Know Nothing Party in the winter of 1854 to 1855. This party had never become a large political party yet. Millard Fillmore accepted to be the party's presidential candidate for the 1856 election. Millard Fillmore, however, had a very humiliating loss in the end of his political presidency. After his wife Abigail died and was buried in Washington, he never went back to Washington after he left. Millard Fillmore lived the rest of his life with his newlywed wife, Caroline, in Buffalo as the first citizen of Buffalo. He later died a tired and happy man on March 8, 1874, due to a stroke. From a poor young boy to a lawyer to the 13th President of the United States, Fillmore lived a life of hard work and determination. Knowing what President Millard Fillmore has done for our country has been very eye-opening and very interesting. I'm glad I got to learn about him more, and I hope you all did too. Thank you.